Attacks can't be prevented, but they can be stopped. Modern cyber attackers have already made it inside your network, but you have the upper hand. Find and eradicate threats with ExtraHop network detection and response, and shut them out before real damage is done. Learn the advanced techniques attackers are using and how ExtraHop stops them with a live attack simulation. Register at securityweekly.com/ExtraHop. That's extra HOP. Picture your team being able to map out the external attack surface as it grows and see the same attack vectors as a hacker does. Most tools out there do asset discovery, but stop there. Enter Detectify. It takes an inventory of exposed web assets and automates vulnerability testing for security misconfigurations, expiring subdomains, and risks in third-party software. Here's the cool part. They crowdsource payloads from leading ethical hackers. It finds bugs you actually want to fix and finds them in time. Start a free 2-week trial by visiting securityweekly.com/Detectify. Go hack yourself. Imagine this scenario. You're out of the office unexpectedly, and a colleague pings you because they need access to some system you have credentials for. Now, my listeners would never send passwords over email or Slack. But what about your coworkers? How many organizations out there are sending logins back and forth in plain text? Worse yet, how many just store all of their logins on a shared spreadsheet? Keeper Security's password management platform locks down logins, payment cards, and more in a patented zero-knowledge encrypted vault. Sign up for a Keeper free trial today. Visit securityweekly.com/Keeper.
Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Before we get to the announcements, we'd love to welcome our new sponsor, Xtero. Can your incident response technology collect from off-network endpoints? Xtero FTK Enterprise can. Endpoints are no longer located in a physical office, and organizations need a comprehensive investigation tool that enables holistic data collection and review. With FTK Enterprise, you can also scan for IOCs and MISP indicators. You can scan with Yara rules, and you can use integrations to trigger automatic endpoint collections. Visit securityweekly.com/Xtero, that's EXTERRO, for access to their white paper incident response for a remote world. All right, with that, a few announcements here. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on your RSA conference. Full conference pass. RSA will be live in San Francisco June 6th through 9th, 2022. Security Weekly will be there delivering real-time live coverage and interviewing some of the event's top speakers and sponsors. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC2022 and use the code 52UCyber. That's 52, the letter U, Cyber. We hope to see you there. Also, don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. You can visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feeds and have all new episodes downloaded right to your phone. You can also join our mailing list, Discord server, and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. And also, it really helps us out if you leave a review. If you are watching on YouTube, for example, if you like or subscribe, leave some comments, join our Discord server, and send us some comments there. We check that out live as we go through each of these podcasts, and it's just great to hear back more from you. You know, the podcast is kind of unidirectional sometimes. Like, we're shouting things into a microphone, and we hope people are listening and liking what we're doing. But it's always great to get feedback. Anything we can do better, anything we're not covering that you want us to cover. You know, giving us, telling us guests you'd like to see on the show, all that would be great for us and really helps us make this podcast better for you. And now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can go to securityweekly.com/ESW270 to check out the news stories for today. We've got links to them. I usually spend a couple of hours going through each item and typing up some thoughts on it, some basic thoughts on each story. We don't always get to each story, so if you want to go check that out, you'll every week you'll see a couple that maybe we didn't have time to cover. And and yeah, actually, I want to give a quick shout out to a couple of the sources that I use to gather these news. SecurityWeek.com does a great job of covering new M&A deals. So does the Term Sheet newsletter, the Strictly VC newsletter, both great. And there's a new one I started following. A guy named Mike over at Return on Security runs the Security Funded newsletter. And that's a great one. Every week he puts together stats on the security industry. He does a great job of categorizing everything, kind of like how I put the stories in the order of fundraising. He puts it together there. Tyler, I think you'd love that newsletter.
Yeah, no, I know Mike Privet very well. Actually, I've known him.
Oh, you do?
Started that newsletter. Yeah, he's a great guy, and his research is fantastic. I'm actually going to message him right now and let him know we dropped another promo for him. So I'm sure he'll be excited.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, lots of funding today. How many funding items do we have? We've got 13 funding items. So I'm going to go kind of in reverse here. Number 13 is a weird one. Thoma Bravo tried to sell off Imprivata, but then the pandemic happened and they canceled that effort. And it looks like they're kind of gearing up to do it again. They picked them up for $544 million in 2016. They were hoping to get somewhere around $2 billion, quadruple their investment in 2020. Not bad, $500 million per year, over a 4-year investment. And then, but yeah, now 2 years later, looks like they made an investment in them so that they could acquire a company called SecureLink. So it looks like they're ramping up to maybe exit Imprivata again here.
Yeah, the timing on this one, it's just the numbers are so big. It always blows my mind with some of these PE deals that they can be dumping such huge sums of money in, but at the end of the day, they figure out how to, either financial leverage, redo the financial side of the business, re-architect the execution side, trim the fat, or do something that gets them to a better profitable situation with higher margins and higher return on investment. And then they're able to flip it X number of years later for, 100% bump in valuation. So, there's always the roll-up approach to private equity as well, which we might be seeing here, pulling in 1 or 2 or 3 companies, rolling them together, and then providing something that's an outsourced value bump from there. So kind of neat to see how these things, happen over time from 2016 through 2022.
1 + 1 = 3 is the idea there. Yeah,
that's right.
All right, at the top of the funding list, we have Fortress Information Security, which I was not familiar with before this. They actually had fairly modest raises before now, and I think they had like a low double-digit Series A, something like 11 million, and then Series B was like 13 or something like that. The Series B wasn't even double the Series A, and then all of a sudden, private equity investment of 125 million. And they're kind of interesting. They're kind of like a GRC plus risk management plus vulnerability management all in one portal. And they're very focused on, they say they've got 40% of the electric grid in the U.S. as customers, electric utilities, and kind of focus on that critical infrastructure space with government, water, electric, manufacturing, stuff like that. So interested to see what they do with the 125 million. They could either, go into other industries or, I think the thing that would make the most sense is for them to take it more globally and stick to their niche.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? Because to see a funding round of in 2015, they started in 2015 with their seed round of 6 million. Followed by 2017, a 13 million A, followed by 2019, a 16 million B, and then 125 million, right?
Yeah.
Most likely that's a majority purchase. Tough to know. It depends on whether they issued new equity to execute that or whether they did secondaries to execute it. How much of that went into the pockets of the founders to liquidate the business and, the previous stockholders, or how much of that went to operating capital is always a question we won't know. But, the question is, are they going to be able to leverage a $125 million investment to begin to capture some of this market? And then the second point I had when I read this article is, did they catch a big raise, a big round by pivoting or changing their messaging to supply chain attacks and just all of a sudden that's a hot button and they're able to get a multiple that was higher than they've traditionally gotten? I'm not sure. It's an interesting question. But the article on VentureBeat, I think, is kind of a mediocre article because they're equated to Synopsys as a primary competitor in the global supply chain market.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
As well as Palo Alto.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, I saw that, and immediately, I'm sorry, VentureBeat, but like that put you way down my list of like when I'm including stories here. Often I see multiple outlets will cover a fundraise, and like this is just so off the mark, that now when I see VentureBeat, like if it's VentureBeat or somebody else, I go somebody else because it's just I don't know. I mean, the other side of it is it's almost kind of funny, like how much they don't understand the space. Because Synopsys is first and foremost
this is a good question, and I don't remember if we were talking about it last week or I was talking with somebody about it in a completely different forum, but actually, Tyler, I think we were talking offline about it, about how a lot of the market for SEO purposes, to get in line with analysts, they aggregate as many of these terms as they can to be relevant, to get noticed, to get sales introductions, to get funding, to get whatever. And it looks almost like in this article, that's what the writer did, was they say they're in this space. Let's look for other companies in this space without actually cross-checking to see if that's true. And that's a big problem in our industry in general, not just in VentureBeat. I know I just took a complete left turn. I'm sorry. But
it's good for you to have
here, maybe that's it.
Yeah, it's good for you to back them up a little bit because I mean that's the whole reason all of us were analysts, like had jobs as analysts. In my opinion, is the security industry is really tough to understand. So we shouldn't hate too much on somebody from the outside that gets the comps wrong, right?
Yeah. It just might be completely confusing, and that's a result of the market and a number of mechanisms at work, all conspiring to make it worse in terms of confusion than it already is.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. This could be a mistake of I don't understand the market, and anybody that said supply chain anywhere, I'm just going to put into this as primary competitors. Which clearly they're not. Like if you know anything about Synopsys, Palo Alto, and this particular company, they're not direct competitors. But you're right, Katie, in the sense that we can also bring up the problem with marketing to SEO, meaning letting SEO drive how you want to market. What that can do, if you're not careful, is cause significant confusion in the market. So Palo Alto and Synopsys might have put out pieces about this particular. Well, I know Synopsys did because they are closer, but Palo Alto definitely could have done a piece, on supply chain because they wanted the SEO crunch. They wanted the hit that comes with that. They wanted the brand uplift, and that results in market confusion. That's where you have to be, from a marketer's perspective, careful not to let SEO drive your positioning.
And in this author's defense here, I don't know this person, but the way that media works now and press works now, so relating it back to vendors trying to get some airspace, everything is rush. Maybe this person was under a tight deadline from someone else and it was a completely unrealistic deadline. Maybe it was to get his name out there. Who knows what the driving factor was? But I don't think we can necessarily pinpoint the author as, you just did this horrible job. I think there are so many factors that go into it, and it's been coming for a long time that this kind of thing was bound to happen. Not just to him. I'm sure it happens to many. It's happened to me. I've miscategorized stuff, of course. I'm not the smartest person on earth, but there are so many market pressures that come together that cause something like this. That said, this doesn't work at all, and this just helps to misinform the market. So every time something like this happens, it makes the confusion worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to go to Synopsys' website and see that AppSec is basically a side hustle for them, and their main thing is semiconductor design or something. I don't even understand their main business, but clearly the bulk of their revenue is not from their security products.
Right, and Palo Alto is the same way, but their Synopsys side hustle is huge. Putting that in air quotes for those that are just listening to audio, it's huge in the sense that it's huge for a niche market called AppSec. Right, they're a major player in AppSec, but they're not a $4 billion AppSec company or supply chain company.
Yeah. All right. Good conversation to have, though, because it's it's tough to cover the market, but having done a lot of writing, about companies, you got to do your due diligence before you hit that publish button.
You do have to do your due diligence, and especially if something like this may affect whether or not you get funding, whether or not you get customers, because it really can if potential buyers, if potential investors start seeing, now this is an external writer, but I'm talking from an internal PR marketing comms perspective. If you position your company wrong enough times, you're going to hurt yourself. And Will alluded to that as well in his comments earlier.
Yeah, we at Security Weekly, at Enterprise Security Weekly, we have the highest journalistic integrity, and we pre-read every single one of these articles with a fine-tooth comb for hours before we get on the show. We never miss.
Yeah, I redlined them on my Remarkable. They're all redlined here, every word.
So are you getting paid for these placements? What's going on here? Are you getting paid for ad placements here, Adrian?
No, I want it's a small company out of Finland, and I want it to stick around because I really like the product, and I'm sick and tired of my favorite software products and gadgets dying.
I think you need to reach out.
Should we now flip to number 14 for that reason?
What is number? Yeah. So that was
the biggest, costliest startup failures of all time.
Let's do that one.
Yeah, so that was actually kind of the crux of the last question that I threw to Will Lynn in our last interview. And when I saw this pop up, like the first thing I did is, okay, I'm going to search for cybersecurity companies. I wonder if there's any cybersecurity companies on there. Didn't see any. And 224 is a lot to scroll through. And
there were some adjacent spaces, though, Adrian.
Yeah. I paged up and paged down through the bulk of this and didn't find, didn't really. So what did you see that was adjacent? I'm curious. Maybe I missed something.
There are 224 companies. There was a networking company, Procket Networks, that was in there. GigaOhm, again, adjacent, not exactly. There were a few more in here as well.
So Adrian, as you went through this list, when they say the biggest failures, does it mean they went to zero and got zero out of the business?
I think in most of these they closed up shop.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, these were true failures.
That's a lot of burned money when you look at 275 million and 675 million in Better Place. Whew.
Like Jawbone, maybe Jawbone sold their IP off to somebody. So Jawbone made like Bluetooth headsets and speakers and stuff like that.
Yep.
Like maybe like somebody like that, you don't close up without selling off, your patent portfolio and, IP and stuff like that. I wouldn't think. Designs, like there's a lot of IP that has value there, I would think.
I remember so many of these. So sad.
One of the largest one was Kiwi, was that vertical video streaming platform.
Well, it was launched literally at the beginning of lockdown, the COVID lockdowns. And so their whole idea was to shorten videos and news information into tiny sound bites because we're all so scattered and don't have much time and thus little attention. And then all of a sudden, everybody had all this time and attention because they were all at home all the time.
And it did not work.
No. And people had hours and hours on hand. They weren't going anywhere, talking to anybody else because everybody was frightened out of their minds. People wanted to watch longer form stuff to keep them occupied. So it was terrible timing, man. That's really a kick in the ass.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like some of these stories, like there's all kinds of interesting stories buried in here. Theranos is in here. Obviously, that's a ridiculously huge story, but also like some of these end up with the founder going to jail.
I was just skimming through them and seeing things like entirely new executive team brought in. Unfortunately, by the time they were brought in, the financial things were too dire. We killed the whole company. Like, holy smokes!
I mean, how does it get there without any red flags? Obviously, there are red flags, but somebody's doing a good job at hiding them.
Hands off investors, maybe hands off board. I don't know.
Yeah, good thing there was governance on the board for these.
One of my favorites on here is Quirky. Quirky made some really cool products. So the idea was anybody could invent a product, and they basically send off their invention, their designs, to Quirky, and Quirky will do all the formal blueprinting, manufacturing, marketing, retailing, all that stuff. And it's neat. You buy the product, and it's got like a bio of the inventor on the back of the product. And the inventors were anybody from like teenagers to retired folks. Really cool idea, but it didn't work because this is all low quantity, high profit margin manufacturing. Like they couldn't get the scale needed for this to be profitable, which really made me sad. I actually still use some of the products from Quirky. So this little cable holder thing here. This is Quirky.
Yeah, I remember Quirky for sure.
And then they had one that held your MacBook charger, and the entire cable could roll up and fit inside the MacBook charger, and then it closed around it, so you didn't have any loose cables flying around in your bags when you packed up your MacBook charger. Had some neat stuff.
Yeah, again, I wonder how accurate some of this data is. Meaning, like it says they're all deaths or failures or whatever, but Clout, for example, if you go to Klout on here,
yeah,
Clout was in 2009. I remember Clout. I paid attention to it for a bit. They raised $40 million. Eventually, it was sold in 2014 for $200 million. I'm not entirely sure how that is a failure, but it's on the failure list here. So some of them I'm not sure are failures in the sense that we are talking like they go to zero and die. But there's definitely some deaths.
I mean, if they had a successful exit and somebody else mismanaged it, yeah, that's different than what I think we're, should really be on this list.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting list, and interesting that there are no there are no security companies on this list that I could find.
No, there like I said, there were a couple adjacent spaces. I found two more: Sempra Technologies, provider of real-time recovery management and continuous data protection. That's one here. And then this TrueSand Networks. So not necessarily squarely in cyber, but at least
yeah, I see.
Adjacent here.
Yeah,
not that I think, hey, let's put cyber companies on this list. Let's see them fail. Of course not. But I think this is a nice spread across industries, is what I'm saying.
But it's interesting, Will Lin, basically he was saying that some of this is underreported when security companies do fail. So I think that would be interesting to see somebody to actually do kind of a write-up of some of the security companies that did fail and why they failed.
God, I think it'd be excellent. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah, I've not seen anybody do it. I actually have some notes on that topic. Norse is a very interesting case. Norse Networks. Everybody remembers them imploding like days before RSA 2016, I think it was. And their names are even printed on the lanyards. So everybody was walking around with seeing Norse's name everywhere. And there was this big news story. It basically said the founders are locked out of the building and can't get in, and they don't know why, or something like that. Like, it was very mysterious sounding. And basically they brought in a whole new management team, reincorporated the company under a different name. And last time I checked, the company still existed. And a lot of people, like, they assumed the company just died right there, but it was a lot more complex than that. In fact, one of the original founders was still there, and not too long ago, like 2 years ago, was granted a patent on the Pew Pew map. on the Norse, like where the map of the globe, and it looks like war games. There's little missile bombs flying and stuff like that. Like they received a patent on that.
Nice.
So I'm sure there's some interesting stories there if we dig into that, Tyler. We'll have to write that.
Absolutely.
Oh, right. A lot of these aren't terribly interesting funding items. ThreatLocker is kind of interesting. I'd never heard of ThreatLocker. And I saw a note on there that 23,000 organizations are using their product. And I was thinking, who the heck are these guys? And how are they've got $100 million Series C and 23,000 customers? Surely they're white labeling or something like that. And it does sound like the situation. It looks like they sell to MSPs. And they say over 2,000 MSPs are using them. And basically, I found a story that said, I've actually got a quote here. ThreatLocker co-founder and CEO Danny Jenkins says his company experienced record sales growth in July in the wake of the Kaseya ransomware attack, and is adding 60,000 new seats a month to its application whitelisting solution.
Yeah, likely sold one or two MSSPs that then went and resold it to every single one of their customer.
Yeah. So yeah, that's right place, right time, I guess. Crazy growth there. Obsidian, we talked about that market, so I'm not going to touch on that too much. That's SaaS security, or SSPM, as Will Lynn taught us a new acronym today. SaaS security posture management, and they've got 90 million. I think that's a Series B. I want to say. I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. I think it's interesting. Blueshift is doing SaaS as a service, or XDR, for small businesses. Be interested to see. Like, that's always a challenging market to go after. And generally it has to be a sales channel thing. It has to be something where you're actually selling to MSPs or telcos or something like that. And in fact, one of the ones on this list that's selling to telcos was Surance.io, which is like cybersecurity insurance for consumers, which I thought was kind of interesting. That's number 11.
4 million Series A.
Yeah, tiny Israeli company.
If you read the article, they closed a 4 million Series A funding round, allowing Tech Mahindra to acquire 25% of the company at $4 million.
Wow.
So $16 million valuation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird one for sure. I mean, consumer, maybe that's why. It's because it's consumer focused. And I'm not sure consumers want personal cyber insurance or particularly need it, but it sounds like it would be part of bundle or rundle that you get from whoever provides you your cell phone or your internet service, is what I'm guessing.
Kind of an addition to a LifeLock type of thing that some people buy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's see. So SEC is so this is part of the reason I included this article. Number 15 is I think they kind of read this wrong, or they're reading it this way on purpose, or they're kind of reading into what they think is going to happen. But the title is "The SEC is about to force CISOs into America's boardrooms," and what the actual proposal is that companies have to disclose how much cybersecurity experience is present at the board level. So maybe they're assuming that that's going to force, because that would be embarrassing if they have no cybersecurity expertise. It's going to force boards to, shove the CISOs in there, or, specifically go after. I think this would be a big boom to virtual CISO services.
That's super interesting. That's super interesting. Very rarely outside of cybersecurity companies do I see a ton of cybersecurity expertise on the board, like holding a board seat. You see them frequently in the board meeting, you see them on the exec team, but you very rarely see like a CISO on the board itself. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this has any impact, if it has any impact on, general businesses. Like if you look up, the boards of many of these high-tech companies, most of them aren't going to have any security expertise on that board.
Yeah.
Well, if you look through the article a little bit when you have some time, they talk to one board member who is on the board of cybersecurity companies and also other boards. So it's that cross-referencing kind of thing. It's not, hey, I'm from the security world. It's more like, hey, I've sat on the board of the security company, so now I know a little bit about security, and that's a little dangerous.
Well, and that's what it is. That's what I was going to talk about is how expertise is defined is not something they're going to do. So they actually threw out a few bullet points, which do get quoted in the article. And one of them is, whether or not the directors obtained a certification or a degree in cybersecurity. So somebody's going to come up with a board cyber certification that's like a 16-minute Facebook quiz or something like that. I can see that being abused. And
do you click on a link from an unknown sender? No. Okay, you're on our board.
Yeah, you have cybersecurity
expertise. All my Know Before trainings.
Yeah,
I've seen every episode of The Inside Man on Know Before, so therefore I'm certified.
There you go. You are. I saw the first one. I didn't watch the rest.
How could you miss it, man? It's Netflix worthy. Come on.
It is pretty good, but my time is stretched thin lately.
Because wait, you have B-Sides Knoxville coming up, is that right?
I do. Where'd you hear that?
When is that? Where is it?
Where is B-Sides Knoxville?
Well, specifically,
it's in Georgia.
Obvious. Oh, jeez, make me look stupid, Adrian. Where in Knoxville?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I wish y'all could come. Katie has actually been there before and has spoken before. So very cool
tell
to
them where in Knoxville and when it's occurring. So if they want to come, they can come.
Yeah, it's May 13th, which is a Friday. It's Friday the 13th. It's all day, starts at 9, goes to 6. And we feed you breakfast and lunch. It's $25 a ticket. It's going to be 2 tracks, 15 talks, including the keynote. All very high quality talks, a lot of interesting stuff. Really cool venue. We're never going to be in a hotel. Like we're very specific vibe that we try and have with our conferences. So it's a good time if you're within driving distance or anything like that to Knoxville. Highly recommend checking it out. bsidesknoxville.com if you want to grab a ticket. I'm looking forward to it. We haven't had a physical event since 2019. We had to do 2 virtuals because of the pandemic. So we're very, very excited to get back to in person at our brand new venue, which we're using for the first time. All right. Thanks for that, Katie. for that subtle hint to plug B-Sides Knoxville. Let's see what else here. Tyler, did you got a chance to listen to that interview with Alfred Huger? Do you want to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah. I got about halfway through that interview before I got sidetracked for other work type issues, but super interesting interview with Al Huger. For those of you that don't know Al, he comes from old school cybersecurity, way back in the day. He eventually created Security Focus, I think was his. There were a number of businesses he's created. I think he was involved in ISS early on. I don't remember all of them, but he talks about it in the opening to this interview. I highly recommend you listen to it. He is one of those guys that transcends from ideation entrepreneur, security expert, all the way up through like, I can run a business. I can run a business unit. I know how to build businesses. I know how to market businesses. It was just an amazing true straight talk, and that's what they call it, straight talk style interview of someone who I just have a lot of respect for. He recently left Cisco to go found another new company, and it's kind of freed him up to, again, not have to be limited by PR and what he can and can't say. And I highly recommend, getting in there and listening to what he has to say about cybersecurity startups and other building technology companies.
So much experience, great advice. And at this point, I want to jump to the Squirrel story. We had some great interviews and conversations today, but we are running a bit long. And so this Squirrel story, I tend to go for something, a little lighter. But I came across this, because a lot of my sources for the stories for the funding announcements for M&A are not specific to security. They cover the whole market. So I usually read a lot of that other stuff. A lot of, I like to check out what's happening in other industries, what's hot there. And so I came across this Binah.ai. I'm not even sure how to say that correctly. BINAH.ai is the website, and it's a health data platform. And they're basically claiming they can grab like stuff that the average smartwatch doesn't even grab, unless you get like a really fancy one, just from the camera on your phone or even from a webcam, they're saying.
No way.
Simply by pointing video at you, they claim to be able to accurately measure blood pressure, heart rate variability, oxygen saturation, respiration rate. Okay, it's pretty easy. Like you can watch your chest move maybe, sympathetic stress, parasympathetic activity, and pulse respiration quotient. Oxygen saturation from video?
Nope, absolutely not. 100%.
I had a doctor's appointment a couple weeks ago, and they couldn't even accurately take my resting heart rate in the office. So, yeah.
All you gotta do is take a selfie and upload it to Binah.ai, and it'll tell you your white blood cell count.
Yeah, I suggest we go ahead and let the squirrels take this one back to their home because it's nutty. It's totally
nuts.
Absolutely.
It really, really is. Yeah, there's some. Yeah, they actually link to some research in there. So maybe they have academic research they can point to, but even that's not convincing me because a lot of that stuff is at very experimental stages. I don't see being able to do that with general consumer devices that you just happen to be holding. I can't even do Windows Hello with any of the webcams that I own because you need a special webcam that has the throws infrared light or something like that because, they don't want face, tracking for that kind of stuff to force you to have to turn on a light every time you want to log into something. If you had to have proper lighting every time you use Face ID, people would just stop using Face ID. So, yeah, I can't even use my face to log in on any of the hardware I own with Microsoft Windows Hello. And they're saying they can tell me my oxygen saturation? I don't buy it.
Nope. Hard no.
All right. And with that hard nope, it's time to hard nope out of this podcast. Thank you for those that made it through today. Today's an extra long one. I think we had a good time. We had a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Thanks, Tyler, for joining us. Thanks, Katie. And a big thanks to everyone watching or listening to this week's episode. Sometimes you got to be watching a video to, otherwise you're not going to get some of those awkward, wonderful silences we have on the show. But thanks to everybody for watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Have a great day.